Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. This seminar is organized by the Eritrean Assistant Organization in Chicago. It's led by the youth, young adults groups. We would like to introduce today, welcome our sister, Naomi Araya, for taking the time today to share with us about mental health, breaking the stigma, about a little bit about her story and what we can learn as a community. Naomi, please introduce yourself and take it from here.
Thank you, Hirut. Hi, everyone. So as Hirut said, my name is Naomi. I am 26 years old, and I work as a recovery coach, which at a residential treatment facility. So I work with adults with eating disorders and other mental health co-occurring disorders. And I help them, kind of get to where they need to be and help them work through what they're going through alongside their therapist. I've had my own mental health struggles as well, and it's always been a dream of mine to be able to talk to people about like mental health and everything. So I'm definitely happy to be given this opportunity. So I have a slideshow that I'm going to share with you guys. Give me 1 second. All right. So let me. All right. So this is going to be about mental health and how we can break the stigma in the Eritrean and Ethiopian community. So I wanted to play this YouTube video. It is 13 minutes, so bear with me, but I thought that it was something good that we can learn from and watch. So I'll go ahead and play it on my end. And then let me know if you can hear it or if you can't.
When you look at me, what do you see? Now I'm gonna go through some of the things that I typically hear.
Okay.
I'm very astute. I usually get them black, I'm bearded.
Ooh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
When you look at me, what do you see? Now I'm gonna go through some of the things that I typically hear. To the very astute, I usually get them black, I'm bearded, and I'm strong. I also I look like NBA superstar James Harden. I'm most definitely the poorer version. I get hip hop superstar, Emmy Award winner, Donald Glover, AKA Childish Gambino. Yeah, that too, right? And last but not least, I get Curtis Jackson, AKA 50 Cent. Now, one of my goals is definitely to get rich or die trying. I think Sally Mae is putting the emphasis on or die trying, right? But see, what I don't hear is Phil, you look like somebody that lives with depression and anxiety. Phil, you look like somebody that was suicidal for 15 years, every day, 5 to 6 times a day. They don't say, Phil, you look like somebody that was driving on Interstate 95, wanting to crash your car to end your life. No, because see, here in America, when we think about mental health, we think about the homeless man who's walking the streets, talking nonsensically to themselves. We think about the white celebrity who takes their life via suicide. We think about the white mass murderer who goes into a high school and takes the lives of innocent children. Or it's usually your president who loves to tweet venom from the hip. But see, rarely does the conversation speak of a father of 2 kids, someone who possesses a master's in exercise science, a master's in social work, somebody pursuing a doctorate. Rarely is it a person of color. Rarely is it a Black man like myself, until now, because Black mental health matters. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is Black mental health and why is it differentiated amongst racial and ethnic lines? Black mental health are the individual and collective experiences that influence the wellness of a community. Trauma is the biggest influencer of Black mental health. We're talking about historical trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, the Tuskegee experiment, up until present day trauma. When you see somebody that looks like you get killed in their home, rest in peace, Botham Jean. When you see somebody who's living with mental wellness issues get killed by the police, rest in peace, Laquan McDonald of Chicago, Illinois. Or when you see somebody that looks like you get killed by somebody that looks like you, rest in peace, Triple X, Tentacion. See, when we talk about trauma, trauma is unique to the individual, and I'm no different. There were 3 impactful traumatic situations that I've experienced in my life outside of the genetic predisposition because my grandmother lived with schizophrenia. I hearken back to being in 8th grade, 13 years of age. On the way to school, my mother has a nervous breakdown. She's crying, she's pulling at her clothes and her hair, she's cursing. I felt helpless because I couldn't help her or I couldn't help myself. And see, I was expected to continue to go into school that day and achieve. It's funny, when I first started telling this story, I told my mother, listen, I'm telling the story of when you had a nervous breakdown. And she said, Phil, that didn't happen. Now, I know I'm getting older, I have a few grays, right? But I swear I remember that. And then she called me a week later and she said, Phil, I didn't know you remembered that. As if I wouldn't remember the most traumatic situation that I've experienced in my life. And that typically happens. We're often expected to just continue on because we are so resilient as a people, because we do survive, and we've survived for hundreds of years. And I was expected to survive and go into school that day and perform. And I did, because like many of us, I learned how to suppress my emotions and my feelings. But what if I didn't? What if I went into school and I started arguing with peers and fighting? What if I started arguing with the teachers? What if I did criminalistic behaviors within the community? Would I be deemed incorrigible and unable to be in the school setting, in a community setting? Or would anybody care that I just experienced this traumatic situation that has impacted me? Fast forward to my 12th grade year, 17 years of age, January 2001. My mother said, Phil, come downstairs. She said, Phil, your brother Bobby died. And I started crying. That was probably the only healthy coping skill that I had at the time, right? Because being a product of the hip hop culture, hip hop tells me when somebody dies, you either go out and get some liquor or you go get a rest in peace tattoo. Well, I wasn't old enough to drink. That would happen once I got to college, right? But I went out and I got this rest in peace tattoo. As if that was going to do something, if that was going to take away the pain of losing a primary relationship. It didn't. And people ask me, Phil, well, how did your brother die? Say, the opioid epidemic is popular now. But in the Black community, in the hip hop community, especially amongst Black male, it's always existed. He was one who liked to use codeine and Xanax. I don't know what he was trying to cope with. I will never know. I went to school that Monday because I didn't have anybody to say, Phil, stay home. Because my mother was going through it because she just lost her only child. And I went to school feeling all of this emotion. And I remember it like yesterday. I was sitting in computer class. Miss Williams, my computer teacher, came up to me. And I don't know what she said. She said, Phil, She could have said, Phil, what was the score of the Eagles game last night? I let her have it. I blacked on her. I cursed her out. Why? Because I had all this built up anger, all this built up rage. Because see, when we're talking about depression and anxiety for Black men especially, it doesn't look like somebody laying in bed for 6 and 7 days on end. No, it manifests itself through anger and rage. I ended up getting suspended that day. And Ms. Williams and I were able to laugh at the situation years later because I was able to cope with it and understand what I was feeling. But again, it was a moment in time that impacted my life. My third and final story happened at Bloomsburg University in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Again, we remember traumatic situations, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I call it the juice story, right? Because when I go fill out job applications and it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? As long as it doesn't say misdemeanor or felony, I can ignore it if it says that. But if it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime, I have to check it all. And then I'll put, well, it all started with a cup of juice. And then the employers, they laugh like, oh man. And I laugh like, ha, ha, ha. That's my life. So the juice story is, I was coming from the gym to go get me something to eat. I got my food. I paid for it, emphasis on pay. And you know how you go to McDonald's, they give you a cup and you can go to the fountain and get whatever drink you want. And I did that and I tasted it to see if it was watered down. But see, when you go to a predominantly white institution like Bloomsburg University, it seems like they have all the minorities' names on a list. And the school police officer said, Phil, that's stealing. Mind blown. And me having this anger, this frustration that's built up over years of trauma, and me not being able to express myself in a healthy way, I blacked on her just like I did Miss Williams. Unbeknownst to me, that would lead to 20+ charges. I ended up going to jail that night. I ended up getting expelled from school. I ended up doing a weekend in jail because listen, they say you'll get judged by a jury of your peers. With the average age in that community being 60 and over, it wasn't going to be a jury of my peers. But I needed that experience. I needed it. And I needed it because it told me that, Phil, I have to do something different. I ended up appealing to get back into Bloomsburg University, and people knew me, so people wanted me back. And so I got back, and I was focused. One day, my psychology professor, Dr. Cambone Camara, God bless the dead, he said, Phil, come talk to me about anything, anytime. And I took him up on that. I went and talked to him, not to talk about school. I went to talk to him about a young lady I had been courting, right? And I wanted to understand, why didn't she want me? So I went to his office. I'm like, listen, I bought her sneakers. I took her to the movies. I took her to dinner. Well, my mom took her to dinner and all those things because I didn't have a job. Thanks, Mom. But he said to me, Phil, in life, you change to get something or to keep something. I'm like, man, what are you talking about? Little did I know that that would become my mantra, that I realized I had to change. I had to work on my wellness so I can be whole. It took approximately 10 years, because that's the average length of time that they say somebody who lives with mental wellness issues, that's the time that it takes for them to come to grips with it and to seek treatment. For Black people, I think it's much longer. And so within those 10 years, I've been on medication, which quelled the suicidal ideations. They're no more. I go to therapy every week. Hi, Dr. Val. It's been so critical for me in my wellness because I decided to go from living to thriving. To my Black brothers and sisters, you too deserve to go from living to thriving. We no longer have to wear the mask. We're survivors. There's help now. We can get help and walk out there with our heads held high and get the treatment that we need so we can go from living to thriving. To my non-Black brothers and sisters, will you now view the Black person that you come in contact with and might be in a negative way? And recognize that, you know what, they might have gone through something. Or to see them when they excel, what they had to go through to get to that point. Or will mental health continue to be viewed in America as Kate Spade, as Anthony Bourdain, as Chester Bennington, as Robin Williams? Would it now include actors Sam Sarpong, Lee Thompson Young? Will it now include 10-year-old Ashanti Davis, who took her life because of bullying? Would it now represent Emmanuel Sloan, who's the reason why I'm here? Because at 19 years of age, he decided to take his life by jumping in front of a train. This isn't an indictment on you or on America. This is just a public service announcement that's stating that we're here and we deserve to live and to thrive. Thank you.
All right, so there we go. All right, so before I go into like my story and everything, I wanted to recap a little bit of that video. And I just wanted to ask first, like a general question of like, do you relate with the video? Are there any aspects of the video that you gravitated towards or you thought like, yeah, I, understand that, or maybe, some of it, you see it in your own life or someone that you love. So if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to get off mute and kind of like express that, or you can just like raise your hand, whatever you're comfortable with, but I'll kind of give it like a minute or so and see if anyone has anything.
Yeah, I really liked what he said in the beginning about like having issues with mental health can take like a lot of different forms. Like it isn't just like the homeless person that like looks like they're speaking to themselves. Like it could be the person in your class that's always cracking jokes. Like you never really know what it is that someone is going through. And so I think when he was like talking about that, it kind of like forces you to really think about, okay, like what are things that people are going through that may not be obvious when like looking at them from the outside.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that share. It definitely helps you switch that perspective. So you're not seeing it in the way that the world may predominantly see it, but you're seeing it through the lens of like anybody can struggle with mental health. A CEO could struggle with mental health. You don't have to visibly have your life in shambles to be part of that category. Does anyone else have anything? Oh,
yeah, I can chime in. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I have headphones on. Yeah, I think that was a great, as I mentioned in the comments, a great video choice on your part, and just as addressing the impacts of trauma is really important and important to learn about. I think no matter what field you're in. I used to be a teacher, and in reflection, like I had students definitely who had trauma, and I didn't realize it in the time. They would sometimes just like react, like he had expressed. Sometimes you just kind of like go off, and you have all this trauma, and you haven't really dealt with it, and we all have our own personal trauma. So yeah, I think it's just really, really relevant what he says about the experience of trauma and just being expected to kind of continue on with life as normal, and the importance of taking the time to, if you can, go to therapy or do whatever it is, your mental wellness activities to help you understand your trauma and deal with it and cope better.
yeah, thank you. That's definitely another great perspective. A lot of people, even within the schools, a lot of students will struggle with mental health, and a lot of the times, from what I know, is if you have a kid that acts out, then it's like, oh, why are they acting out? It's not, oh, let me try to talk to them to see how their mental health is, or what might be going on at home and everything like that. So thank you. All right. So I will go ahead and kind of share a little bit about my story and my experiences with like mental health in my life. So yeah, so I'm 26. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. So I've been here all 26 years of my life so far. I, grew up in a two-parent household. My grandma was very present up until I was 17 when she passed away. I have a sister who's 3 years older than me. So we had, what I'd like to call the typical normal life. Two parents, sister, nothing really out of the ordinary. And I was raised in the church. So from a very young age, we were always going to church. And that was something that was kind of like an every Sunday routine. And then growing up into maybe you could say my elementary/middle school years, I was experiencing a lot of like bullying. And at that age, it was really hard for me to figure out exactly what I was feeling or to be able to pinpoint it on the bullying. And it wasn't something that I ever really talked about. So at that time, my parents had very little knowledge to what was going on when I was at school, and my sister as well. And I remember in 5th grade, I was 11, and I believe it was May. And that day or that evening, I will never forget, because that's when I really felt my very first like depressive episode. I didn't really know what it was, and I swept it under the rug. But what happened was, I'll never forget, I was watching a movie, and I was just watching it by myself. My sister and my mom, my grandma were out at like a wedding shower or whatever, and my dad was upstairs doing some work stuff. And I was watching a movie, and randomly, maybe 25 minutes into the movie, I felt this huge cloud of depression, and I've never felt it before. And it was so big where I couldn't continue to watch the movie. I couldn't even bear to stay awake for the rest of that evening or night. And I turned off the movie and went upstairs, and I told my dad goodnight. And he was wondering, it's only like 7:30. Why are you going to bed? And I just expressed that I was tired. So he was like, okay, that's fine. Have a good night, get some rest. And I immediately went to bed. Because what I was feeling in that moment, I had never felt before, and I did not want to continue feeling it. And that was the start of my whole mental health that was to come. Now, fast forward to, we'll go to high school. So January of 2012, I was a freshman in high school, and I was experiencing some hefty anxiety and depression. I had some trauma from my younger years that I was starting to remember, and it wasn't anything I really spoke about. So like I never talked about it with my parents or anything. And it was just this odd feeling of like, I'm starting to feel these things, and the biggest thing is I don't like what I'm feeling. And at 15, I thought to myself, like, what do you do to escape what you're feeling? I didn't want to tell my parents because, I love my parents to death, and they're very understanding, but as a lot of you can probably relate, growing up in an immigrant household, it's a very taboo subject to bring up mental health. And I have heard a lot of things about it within our culture of like, oh, it's, you know, Satan, or, you know, if you're really religious, it means you kind of have a curse on you, or, you know, you're just not trying hard enough, or just be happy. And so I kept it to myself. I didn't say anything to anyone. And I remember I had my breaking point. I don't fully remember that time period, because unfortunately I've trained myself to block it out. But I do remember that in some way, shape, or form, I had decided that I did not want to be alive. And I'm not going to go into the details of what I did or anything, because that can be triggering, but I had just told myself I was done. There was no warning to anyone, didn't tell my parents. I was just like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to live with what I'm feeling anymore. And thank God my mom had some instinct in her head that I wasn't in the right mindset, and she had diverted my plan. And she had told me, I'll never forget, she told me, either you sit and talk to me or I'm taking you to the hospital. And I said, I'm not talking to you. And at that point, it was like, okay, we're going. And it was one of those things where like you either get in the car or we call an ambulance, which would be more stressful. And so I got in the car, we went there, and the lady at the ER had asked, you know, how can I help you? And I remember just looking at her and saying, I don't want to live. Can you just fix me or something? And, you know, when I was there, they had recommended I do an outpatient program in place of school for a couple of weeks. So I did that, which it did help. But also being at that young age, you really don't have a choice to what is done. It's really, you know, your parents that will make that choice. So I kind of had my rebellion stage of like, well, my parents are telling me I need to do this, but I also don't want to do it. So I'm just not going to get anything out of it, which I wish I had taken it seriously, because it probably could have been, you know, the first and last time I had to do an outpatient program. And going through high school, I thought by doing this program, it would make things so much better. And when I went back to school my freshman year, after being away for about 6 weeks, my three of my friends the night before had asked me, you know, do you want to sleep over and then we'll go to school together the next day? And my parents were like, that's fine. If you want to do that, like, you've had a lot go on, like, go have some fun. And I did not make it through the night. I ended up calling my mom and saying, come pick me up. And the next day I went to school, and all these people throughout the whole school who I didn't even know, a lot of them, I remember just through the hallway them chanting like, you're a psycho, or other demeaning words that would probably send someone back into their depressive episode. And for me, it didn't exactly send me back, but it had me in this weird spot. And, you know, I also had experience where I had a friend, my best friend at that time, who had told me, you know, how could you leave me for 6 weeks? And I'm just like, what do you mean leave you? I had to get help. And it was just a lot of these assumptions that were being made that in the end made it harder for me to navigate what life would be like after getting help and having to continuously still get help in some way, shape, or form, such as therapy or taking meds. So in high school, I struggled a lot. I transferred schools because of everything that was going on. So sophomore through senior year, I was at a new school, definitely much better. But it didn't take away any of the stuff I was feeling. So I was still feeling depressed and anxious, suicidal, and I had attempted suicide probably about 5 times from that point on through the end of my high school time. And I still say I'm still thankful that nothing actually happened about it, that I am still here. Because also a lot of the times when people are suicidal, or I can say in my experience, it is usually an impulsive decision to a problem that you feel like is taking up your whole space. But in reality, if you give yourself like 10 minutes to just cool down, you'll probably feel a lot better. When I went to college, I'd gotten in a relationship with someone that I met, and I felt really happy about it because I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be in this relationship. It just felt like I'll feel love, so maybe I won't feel depressed anymore, which was not the best way to think with it. But we dated for about 1 year and 4 months, and at the end of our relationship, I was sexually assaulted. And with that, it took me from being in this like state of recovery to this state of like everything just blew up again. I had a lot of PTSD that I had got from that, and it took me years to be able to get through that. And in the midst of trying to figure out how to deal with my PTSD, which with PTSD, you can get flashbacks, and you're not just depressed, you're not just anxious, but you're literally living through the moments over and over again. And you feel like you're there, even though you're not. And to me, to get through it, the only thing I could think of was, if you're in college, you have access to alcohol, no one's going to tell you to stop drinking. You're with your friends. So I fell into an alcohol addiction where I was constantly drinking to take my mind off of what I was feeling, which in that moment it was to cover up the PTSD, because I did not want to feel that at all. I was having immense flashbacks that I did not want to experience anymore. And when I would drink, I wouldn't experience them. But then when you sober up again, you experience it. And after that, that kind of went on for my whole my whole college time. I didn't receive help for my PTSD or anything until after I graduated, because I was covering it. So to me, like, it wasn't present. And when I graduated from college, a couple months after that, I was suicidal again and attempted. And in that moment, I came to the realization that I need to get help again. So it was more of like my choice. And I went to get assessed at my local hospital in the behavioral health unit. And they had me go to an outpatient program. And then when I was at the outpatient program, they ended up telling me I needed to go inpatient, which means you're going to go stay in the hospital in their behavioral unit. And I, went in there, did that. And then when I was released, I went back to the outpatient program. And then about 2 days later, I was like, Mom, Dad, my flashbacks are terrible. I can't deal with it. I really don't want to be alive. And I knew in that moment that I just told them the safest thing I can do right now is go back to the hospital. And I didn't want to do it, but I knew that that's the safest thing I can do for myself. And so I went back. I was there for about 12 days, and then they sent me to residential. And at the residential program, even though I didn't want to necessarily be there, I just wanted my whole fight to just be over and be back home with my parents and my friends and family. But the residential helped me a lot, and I was able to navigate that PTSD and figure that out. And then after that, I, went to an outpatient program to kind of help me get back to like my normal life and everything outside of residential and get back into the swing of things. And, you know, I've done a couple outpatient programs to kind of help me with getting like recharged and stuff, which have been really helpful. And now I currently am working at abstaining from alcohol. You know, I will say with alcohol, I never really liked it, but it was a great cover up with my problems. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that. But through using that for things that weren't good, I've realized that, you know what, abstaining from it is probably going to be the best thing. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, but I currently am a member with them. I go to meetings, I have a sponsor. I'm starting to work through the steps and trying to just figure out, well, how can I make my life better by making sure alcohol is out of the picture? And I will say that having my mental health more intact has definitely made life easier. And you know, going through that whole process of getting help was really hard in the moment because, again, being, you know, Habesha, there is that stigma that is really tied down to our roots and can make things hard. But, you know, I'm happy to be in a place now where I can speak about these things and be able to kind of remove the stigma and remove the negative things that might be with it, to be able to show people that it's okay to get help. It's okay to go to a program. Because one way that I always look at mental health is if someone's ever talking to me and saying like, hey, I don't know if I need to go get help or not, like, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. Well, I always come back to this where I say, if you were a cancer patient and you were in remission and then now it came back, are you going to ask me if you should go back to the hospital or not? Because you will go back to get better. So it's kind of like, you might be in remission from your mental health, you might be doing so much better, but life is hard and there's always going to be those moments of where it's going to kind of flip your life around again. And, you know, I never really understood, this would be my last part, I never really understood the magnitude of what it would be like to lose someone to suicide, because I'd always been the one who was in that box of like, I want to die. So I never really saw the perspective of like, well, what would I feel from the outside if I had lost someone? And I'm not going to go into detail of it or anything, but I had lost my own cousin to suicide, and it makes me just realize, you know, the magnitude of how hard it can be, and, you know, how much you might be leaving behind, you know, the people that love you, and also how important it is to get help, no matter your race or ethnicity, age, or gender. So that is the end. Thank you, guys.
Wow, Naomi, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I can actually relate. And, you know, a few years back, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I was in denial. You know, my siblings, my family wanted me to go to the treatment center, and, you know, I didn't see the point. But, you know, I was actually admitted a few times, 3 times, and then, you know, like you, I was taking substances.
Oh, you cut off, Henok. I don't know if you can hear us.
Now everything is great. I'm in remission, and I've been doing positive affirmations, really taking care of my health, my body, my mind, and you know, just reading positive books that helps me stay, you know, keep my mood up, you know. But so yeah, I applaud you for, you know, fighting that depression, you know, just don't drink depressants, because alcohol is a depressing substance, so it doesn't, you know, go hand in hand. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Definitely helps to know like that you're not the only one going through it. There are other people also.
Hey, Naomi.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for opening up. I know that took a lot of courage to open up to everybody, so I'm really proud of you. And as the speaker that you showed in the video, he talked about, you know, suppressing and internalizing our trauma and our feelings, which I can relate to a lot. And as we, you know, grow up in our Eritrean Ethiopian community. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you could join. I don't know if anyone else has anything, no pressure, but just want to kind of see before I move on.
I just kind of want to echo what's been said. You know, thank you for your bravery and opening up and sharing your story, and just opening up the door for, you know, the community to feel more comfortable and having these really important conversations, and just, yeah, feeling, just normalizing it is like a step in normalizing it.
Thank
Super
you.
important and super, I know, hard to do, you know, it's not that often is talked about. So thank you. Thank you, Hannah, for also opening up for that is.
All right, we can move on to the next slide. So I thought it was pretty important to be able to break down what a stigma means, because I guess we could have our own thoughts of what it means, and I'm pretty sure we all kind of have a similar thought, but according to the Mayo Clinic, stigma is when someone views you in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristic or personal trait that's thought to be or actually is a disadvantage, a negative stereotype. Unfortunately, negative attitudes and beliefs towards people who have a mental health condition are common. And kind of like tying into like what we might hear when it comes to stigma, you know, I kind of put 3 things at the bottom here. So with my experiences with mental health, I was told, don't say anything, stay quiet about it, or they won't understand, amongst more things, but those being like the 3 common staple things that I would hear a lot from, you know, family who are like Habesha, and because there was that lack of understanding of like, you know, they think there's that stigma, which there is, but how can we break free of that? So I have another short video. It's, I think, like a minute. And then I have like a couple questions after that where I'd like to kind of open it up for people to kind of say what's on their heart and everything.
African Americans have one of the highest rates of untreated mental health disorders among all racial groups. This is due to a long history of African Americans have one of the highest rates of untreated mental health disorders among all racial groups. This is due to a long history of institutionalized racism and high levels of cultural stigma. For example, the belief that mental illness is seen as a weakness or spiritual flaw. This stigma can prevent people from accessing the treatment they need to get better. Cultural considerations are important when developing treatments for this group. Many place high value on the church and religion as a coping tool and source of strength for problems, including mental health issues. Respected spiritual leaders can be harnessed to provide support for those with mental illness in their communities. When the leaders work collaboratively with mental health professionals, then there is a potential to provide mental health expertise in a culturally relevant context, creating fair access to proper mental health treatment.
All right. So I kind of want to open it up to have this more be like interactive. So I'd love to hear from all of you guys or some of you guys. But I wanted to kind of ask like the question of like, what stigmas have you experienced? Or even if you haven't experienced it personally for your life, that you've maybe witnessed within our community for someone else.
Hi, my name is Pana and I'm 17 years old. And I could relate to your story or also being Habesha because my mom grew up in a village that like they are not open about anything, being a girl or anything. Like they are not open at all. Like they keep things to themselves, even when they are like sad, when they are experiencing like some things as a human and stuff. So even like me growing up, you know how you have like girl stuff, like I couldn't be open to my mom because I didn't know what it was and stuff. Like okay, let me just say it, like period. When I had my first period, I didn't know what it was because I never told that girls have that. And I thought I was pregnant and I was like, how can I be pregnant? And then I couldn't tell my mom because like, like you just think that like, what would she think of me if I told her what is this? So I was so scared and I told one of our neighbors and she said just while girls have it, and then she said it's okay to have it, and then she told me how to use it and stuff. And like I can't even like I wish I had a mom that is like a best friend to you, like you know how you are like very open to your best friend. She knows everything about you, she's there for you, but you can't be like that with Habesha parents because that's not what they grew up with, and it's hard for them to just take it in or to be open to you. Yeah, and I am thankful like to be in this program because I could relate and that makes me happy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Definitely makes me happy to see that other people are benefiting from this as well. So thank you.
Oh, Nia she can't unmute. It's loud. But for her, she said, for me, she's experienced leaders in the Eritrean community. Church has stigma against mental health and bring up religious reasons against it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I relate to that as well. I think there's a lot of truth in that because from my experiences too, the church seems to be the place that holds the most stigma against mental health. So thank you for sharing that. If anyone else has anything, Again, no pressure, but if you do. So I kind of wanted to end this Zoom with the question of like, what can we do as a community? So I know that this is based more out of Chicago, but there are people from all over that are on here. So I guess my question is like, what do you guys want to see more of? Like, whether that's having more like regular Zoom sessions like this, where various, people in our community share their story, or just any other thing that would be helpful for you.
I think it'd be really cool because looking at the people that are on this call now, I feel like generally it is like the youth, which makes sense because this event was catered towards the youth / young adult population. But I think it would be interesting and also just like beneficial to like invite like our parents to the next one, or like having one that is catered to trying to like educate our parents. I don't know how receptive they would be, but I think that could be like the first step towards breaking that like intergenerational like stigmatizing of mental health. So yeah, I think that'd be super beneficial.
Yeah, I love that idea. I definitely want to be able to have one where we can speak with the parents and be able to do our best to break the stigmas that they have as well. So I'm not sure how that would work, but I definitely would be open to doing that.
Hi everyone, hi Naomi.
Hi.
I was just aware now this was tailored to the youth, but I am also a parent. My oldest is in middle school. First, I really want to thank you for being brave and courageous to do this for our community. We have zero knowledge, I can say. I guess the way we were told is we have to be brave. We did, we go back to history, even though, and we as parents think we're giving you guys everything, so there is nothing to be worried about or be stressed or depressed, which I'm learning is wrong. We're not very aware of the outside influence that you guys have, like you were mentioning earlier, the bullying and stuff. I just want to thank you so much. It's an eye-opening as a parent for me. Again, I try to get advantage of everything that EAOC has to offer, so I wasn't really aware of who this was for. But to add to what Shilan said earlier, it would be really great if we can have a section for the parents, mostly to teach them how to talk to their kids, to tell them what are the early signs of depression and how they can assist their kids instead of, what's wrong with you? You have everything you need. I think that's how most of the high-risk parents are approaching it. Okay, I gave you everything. It may be, a good school. It may be, a good house, but we're not very aware of the outside world, what you guys have to deal with in school, because speaking of myself, as a young parent, I didn't have to deal with any of the things that kids have to deal with here in the US. So a lot of it is like lack of knowledge or not being aware. Yeah, we hear it, but I think it's different when it's in your household or when your loved ones go through it. So it would be really beneficial to have a session similar to this, either for both the kids and the parents, or maybe just for the parents to be aware and, help their kids as they go through this.
Yeah,
Thank you. Cannot thank you enough, because I don't think anyone would be brave enough to do this. It's very uncommon. So You're breaking the stigma already, and I really appreciate you, and we'll do better as young parents also.
Thank you. You know, that all means a lot, and this Zoom meeting was really open to anyone, so I'm actually really happy that you joined so we can have that other perspective as well.
Oh, hi, can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so what can we do as a community is that like as an individual, we need to spread awareness about mental health, mental illness, like to our parents, because like as you said, it's really hard to parents to understand what mental health and how important it is. They just like every time we talk about like mental illness, they just say that it's like being lazy or being on phone 24/7. I think they don't understand how the environment itself can like influence you like in a bad way, which can lead to mental illness. So like the only thing that we can do is spray, because that's what me and my sister do to our parents. Like we try to educate them like as much as possible how hard it is. So like that's the only thing we can do, I think, is like spreading awareness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yafte Petros. I'm Naomi's cousin. And one thing I would just like to say about, I'm the first generation. I came here when I was about 5.5 years old. And I would say that it was a culture shock for us, as me, my siblings, and my parents. So as they were a product of their environment, and then we were the product of our environment growing up here in America. So just to follow up with bringing awareness, and with this, Zoom info sessions, I think it would be vital for our community to go on this path.
Thank you, Yofti. All right. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything they would like to add. I took some notes on my phone of the things that people have said, so I can add that to like a sheet and remember that as we move forward with this. And also, if at any point you, like after this, think of more ideas that you have that you want to be able to instill into our community, you can, I'll leave my email if you can email me, or if you have Hirot's contact, you can send her a message, whatever works best. All right. So I kind of had two main goals, which the second one, I definitely think we need to go forth and do it, because some of you guys have already kind of said that's what you'd like to see. And so I agree with that. So I guess my next step would be to figure out how we can do that. And then we'll kind of see where it takes us and all that. And then my first goal here that I'd put was to have a monthly group for the younger generation. So, I don't know if people would want to do this every month or what that would look like. We can try it and then kind of see, if it should be every month or every other month. But definitely having another one of these Zoom things monthly for the younger generation. And it doesn't have to be something that's like scripted like this with a PowerPoint. It could be more of, having someone who's comfortable maybe sharing their story for maybe like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then kind of opening it up to just kind of talk about different things that they had said in their story, and how it relates to us, and just being able to have like that open space of like, this is a safe place to talk with my peers and kind of discuss the things that you might be going through with your mental health, and how you're navigating that. So that's kind of like my two top goals that I'd like to see pan out in the next couple months. So, and that is the end. So I want to say thank you. It's definitely been really great to be able to be here and talk with all of you guys. Definitely enjoyed having this platform and everything. So I will put my email in the chat. So give me 1 second.
Naomi, thank you very much for coming in today, talking and sharing your experience. We really appreciate you, and we cannot wait to do more talks like this. Thank you for doing this today. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, again, thank you all. It's definitely been great. So we'll hopefully get another one going and spread the word so we can see all of you guys again, plus more people. So I did put my email and my number. So if you have any questions or anything like that, or any things you want to potentially see more of, you can email me or text me. I'll answer both. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Naomi, I'm so proud of you all.